Hey, Andre, why does this Ford Ranger have two flaps?
I'm assuming it has two fuel tanks. Remember back in the day,
Yeah.
the Power Stroke, the original had two fuel
Yeah.
tanks? No, no.
It doesn't.
It's a plug-in hybrid.
That's right. Ford just announced that for some markets,
Yes.
including Europe
And
and
Australia.
Australia, the new Ranger, which is the wild track in
Yeah.
Europe, is going to be a plug-in hybrid. Now, the question that Andre and I are asking ourselves is how long before we get a Ranger plug-in hybrid? And we'll discuss that toward the end of this video, but let's get the facts first. So what do we know about the new Ranger plug-in hybrid?
Well, it's pretty cool. So they originally kind of showed it a little bit at a high level about 11 months ago, and Nathan and I were super excited by this. But now we know more, right? Right here in the front, it's a 2.3 liter straight four turbo. And we know this engine well because we owned a 2019 Ranger at TFL Studios with that engine. We've tested many other Rangers with that engine, and it's a really great engine.
Okay, and then obviously this part is all new.
Yeah, so the blue stuff you see here is new. Here underneath the rear section, which is where the bed is, right? This is an 11.8-ish kilowatt hour, almost 12 kilowatt hour battery with its own charge port, right? So this is a plug-in hybrid. And we'll talk about a little bit more what that means. But there is also some other stuff like kind of inverters, converters, and electric motor right here that's sandwiched between the engine and the transmission right here.
Yeah, that's a nice way of doing it. Now, here we have a video that kind of shows the truck in all of its naked glory.
Oh, there, 11.8.
Yeah.
So the beautiful part is that it still maintains its transfer case and differentials and suspension, so they don't have to reinvent the entire wheel, so to speak, right? So if it had 4 auto, 4 low, 4 high, 2-wheel drive, all of the off-road modes, it still has all of those off-road modes.
I'm not sure I'm in love with putting the plug next to where you put the gas, but it seems like that's a lot of electricity next to a lot of potential gas.
Yeah, there it is. There's the gas door.
You think at some point, like the manufacturers will have a high-level meeting and they will standardize where all this stuff goes? Probably not.
No, because they're competing, right?
Yeah.
They're competing against each other. And I'm sure Ford thought really long and hard about this because they do trucks. That's what they do.
All right, so let's talk about the important numbers. So how far will it go on a charge?
So 45 kilometers, Roman.
Okay, so over 20 miles.
Okay, over 20 miles, like what, 27-ish miles?
Yeah.
So
If that's on the European cycle, it may be less.
Yeah, so what does that remind you of? It reminded me of the Wrangler 4xe,
Yeah.
right? That we've also tested. That vehicle is a 4-wheel drive vehicle. It also has a turbocharged motor, right? It also has electric motor, and it also has about 20, 25 miles of electric range.
And that reminds me of the upcoming Gladiator 4xe.
Whoa, that's coming to the U.S., right?
It's definitely coming to the
Yes.
U.S., yeah. So, all right, so we got 27 miles-ish of range, give or take.
Yes.
And what kind of fuel economy? Have they announced fuel economy?
No, but they did say how much power the electric motor makes, which
Okay.
is about 75 kilowatt, which translates to about 100 horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, not all of it is additive, but if you have about 270 horsepower from the gasoline turbo engine plus 100 there could be a lot of power, Roman.
So this-
over 350 maybe.
So this could potentially be the most powerful Ranger, except for the Ranger Raptor.
Yeah, the Ranger Raptor is still king, I
Yep.
think, because the Ranger Raptor has a 3-liter twin turbo with over 400 horsepower.
Ooh, it's towing.
So we need to talk about this, right? Because
7,000 pounds.
7,700 pounds, yeah, 3.5 tons, which is how Australians and Europeans kind of measure towing in their pickup trucks. It translates to 7,700 pounds. And I was thinking about this because Ford doesn't want to give up too much payload or towing, right? Introducing the system. So you could argue that 11.8 kilowatt hours is a small battery. But maybe that's as big as they could make it and still keep the towing.
Yeah, I mean, Ford is going to want to be the king of towing, especially here in America. Now, the reason we're kind of excited by this is because obviously not the first generation Ranger. That was an American-only vehicle, I think. but it was definitely designed here. But the second generation and now this third generation first started out life in Australia and Europe, and then eventually came to America.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's beyond the pale. And in fact, if I were a betting man, Andre, I would bet that this at some point will come to America, especially with the Gladiator 4xe. So I think we're looking at something that is not as far off as that shark video that you did a while ago where, we were looking at a BYD shark that may or may not come to America. I suspect this, a year from now, maybe two, could be here. So we're looking at something that you guys could be buying. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the body of this truck, it looks like a regular Ranger.
Yeah.
So Ford currently builds this plug-in. The production started in South Africa. So right now, they would be facing a chicken tax. If actually, is that only for Europe?
I don't know.
Chicken tax?
That's a good question. I think it's for everywhere.
So anyways, if this truck needs to be made
Or maybe it's only for Europe.
In North America.
Yeah, yeah.
It does, because like the same for China, right? The same maybe for South Africa. So they have a plant in Michigan, in Wayne, Michigan, that builds Ranger.
Here's the other crazy thing. As you know, this is built kind of on the same chassis as the Bronco. So now we're looking at potentially a plug-in hybrid Bronco if they bring it to America.
Yes, that could be cool.
Do we know anything else on number-wise, like charging speed, any of that? We do know it has this power on board, which is really cool.
Which is amazing. Up to 6.9 kilowatt of export power, including 240 volt. This is very similar to the Lightning, very similar to the F-150 hybrid that we also owned. That's really cool. Charging, I've read, is slow.
Yeah.
So to charge this plug-in hybrid, it's kind of meant to be done over a couple of hours.
Okay.
So it's not like, it doesn't have a DC fast charger.
But it doesn't have to have one if you got a regular internal combustion engine.
Yeah, so like at my home, and your home, we have like level 2, right?
Yeah.
So that means what, 7 to 9 maybe kilowatts. So if you have an 11.8 kilowatt hour battery, that's an hour and a half, 2 hours of charging, and you could be topped off, and you could be on your way.
Yeah, so it's not, and I should just be very clear here for all of you out there who may not be familiar with plug-in hybrids. You never have to plug in a plug-in hybrid. You could just fill it up with gas
And keep driving it indefinitely.
Or if your commute is short enough, you never have to put gas in. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Sometimes I think people get confused between the difference between a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, and an all-electric vehicle. So while this does have electricity, it doesn't have to necessarily be plugged in. But it can, with this power on board, be used to power
a camper.
A European camper, yeah.
Yeah.
An American big-ass camper, I'm not sure, but then maybe a Ranger can tow an American big-ass camper.
So anyways, yeah, and I think you're right, Roman. I think Ford has shown their kind of innovation and leadership. I mean, they've introduced the F-150 hybrid, the Lightning, and many others.
Oh, I see something here which is interesting. It looks like there's a little bit of a slope here, Andre.
Yeah, if you look at this bed closely, there's a little slope. So I think that battery is actually taking away a little bit of bed space inside that truck.
But not a huge amount.
No,
Yeah.
I would say maybe an inch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it could have less payload than the other Ranger. It could have a little bit less volume in the bed, but still there are many other benefits. I mean, this gentleman is cooking off of this power, right?
And let's talk about the competitors in this segment, right? So obviously the Ranger is a mid-size pickup truck, so it competes with the Tacoma, which has been the best-selling mid-size in America, and that has gone hybrid. So it would make sense for Ford to kind of take the next step, which would be a plug-in hybrid.
Mm-hmm. And especially with the Jeep working on something similar,
Yes.
I'm sure Ford is not just sitting idling there. They want to compete.
Which begs the question: what's GM going to do with the Canyon GMC twins? What's Honda going to do with the Passport?
Yeah, and Honda.
No, not Passport. Sorry, Ridgeline.
The Ridgeline.
Yes.
I recently went to a Honda event with a Honda Civic, and also the Grand Prix IndyCar of Nashville, and I learned something that I kind of missed. Honda went into trophy truck off-road racing. They stepped up.
Ridgeline. Wow.
Yeah, so they stepped up. They were off-road racing with a Class 7 kind of spec vehicles, and then they said, forget about it. And about a year ago, they went all in on trophy truck, and I wrote a story about it at TFL Truck. So I think Honda has a lot of capability, and at least for a trail sport version of this, I mean, it's not going to have 40s. But
Well, that'd be cool. All right, before we wrap this up, did they announce pricing for the European model?
No, and this video is from Australia.
Okay.
So
I thought they had guesses. I was reading story.
yeah, so they were guessing a lot of money because it's not built in Australia or Asian markets.
Right.
So it would have a tariff. So they were guessing it was going to have a premium, and it's a wild track, which is one of the more expensive trim levels, right, of the Ranger. So Roman, don't expect it to be like an entry level vehicle. It's going to be very pricey.
And I like this 4 high, 2 high, 4 high, 4 automatic, and 4 low. So that's, like you said, the great thing. That
Rear locker, yeah,
it keeps
all there.
everything. And then, probably even a front locker because the Ranger Raptor has a front locker if
Yeah.
you're going to go there.
Yeah, so, and they talked about, EV now, EV later, safe, so you could run it, like you said, on gas only, you can run it EV only, you can combine the two, you could charge it up or not, so there's a lot of flexibility.
So you're saying you could do this thing where, let's say you have a full battery, you could run it on gasoline, and then
Yeah,
if
you
you're
could
gonna
push a button.
Go into, in this case, London,
Yeah.
or Sydney or Melbourne.
Yeah.
You could just push a button and then go all electric, and then once you're out, you can go back to internal combustion. Yeah, that's a really cool new technology. What about Nissan? Anything about Nissan?
Well,
They're still with that venerable 6-cylinder.
yeah, and a lot of people love that.
Yeah.
And they've just updated some of their, styling inside and out on the 2025 model, and I'm hoping
the Frontier, of course.
Yeah, the Frontier, and I'm hoping actually to do a little test drive soon.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it, guys. Let us know in the comments below because we read all of our comments. Would you be interested in buying a plug-in hybrid pickup truck? In other words,
Or a midsizer in this case.
yeah. In other words, would or should Ford actually bring this? Like I say, Andre, if I'm a betting man, I bet you this time next year we'll be talking about this actually being here,
Or maybe it will debut about a year from now.
Yeah, because with the mid-cycle refresh, Ford just added 4-wheel drive to the hybrid Maverick. So with a mid-cycle refresh
Of this.
maybe they'll add the plug-in hybrid. And you saw it here first, I hope.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And oldtfl.com, like Roman's shirt says, is where all of our automotive content is in one place, so you can keep up with all the news.
Views and real-world reviews. We'll see you guys next time. Ciao.